This picture you're about to see is the first cinematic study of the preparation, arrival, and establishment of permanent cover for secret agents. We are fortunate in having with us for this occasion Colonel Robinson, Chief of Schools and Training. Colonel, before we start the picture, perhaps you wouldn't mind saying a few words.
All right, Lieutenant. I will make this short because I know that you are all just as anxious to see this movie as I am. I wish that it were possible for me to meet all of you men personally. But since it isn't, I'll take this opportunity to say hello and to tell you that I'm glad you're with us. Many of you are going to desks in this country or to assignments in neutral countries where you may not be faced with the problems portrayed in this film. But if this brings you just a little closer to those men who are going into the hottest spots, I hope that it will help you to do a better job. This picture does not presume to give you all of the answers, of course. I do think, however, that it will provide a foundation on which to do your own building. For after all, no war service provides a greater scope for individual initiative and imagination than this job for which you have volunteered. All right, Lieutenant, take it away.
Thank you, Colonel. Okay, Al, let her go.
Yes, this is an undercover agent. At least the popular conception of how such a fellow looks and behaves. He is inconspicuous. He blends with his environment. He is, in short, the ideal agent from the enemy's point of view. He's just the kind of agent the enemy is waiting for with open arms. And for that reason, just the kind of agent you aren't going to be.
Student Al?
Right.
Seems I made a good impression at the schools. Nice work.
Thank you, sir.
Pull up a chair. Cigarette?
Thanks.
I think you were told something about your assignment before you went to E, weren't you, Al?
Yes, to obtain intelligence on aviation production and the position of vital targets in the capital district of enemy area.
Correct. You're to set up an intelligence organization which will gather information for an SO operation. Are you set on your cover?
Not definitely. I've narrowed it down to two, either a government inspector or a chief mechanic.
Government inspector. Better for a native agent than a planted one. And these days, when enemy area is using every available man under 50 in the Army, people might wonder what special pull you had. Anything that makes people ask questions, even innocent ones, is bad cover.
Then you think the mechanic's the better bet?
If you're a good mechanic. You know nothing will blow you quicker than not knowing your job.
Well, I put in 7 years with General Motors, and with a little brushing up, I think I'd be all right.
Mechanic in an airplane plant near the capital. That might be the ticket. We know they need good mechanics so badly now that it might not take you too long to establish good permanent cover.
Now, if I could get a job on the night shift, I'd have plenty of time to devote to my hobby during the day.
Good. I like the way you're thinking. Now go to work. The background's familiar to you. You'll be able to get the latest material at the farm. The most recent laws and local restrictions, even the latest slang our intelligence has picked up.
Fine. I've already made up a list of things to check off.
Good. If there's anything you don't get that you think you need, door's always open. And by the way, I'll get right to work on those financial details for you. Hope to have that insurance for your family pushed through before you leave.
That's very kind of you.
No, it's not kind. It's my job to do everything I can to help you think about nothing but your job.
Well, I'll let you know when I'm ready.
Right.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Student Charles. Lawyer, eh? Pretty good cover.
Thank you. Sit down. I'm going over your evaluations from the schools.
Oh, that stuff. I spent enough time on the other side to know my way around.
That's what you told him at E after they took your pants off at the Thursday night round table.
If you set me down in a real spot, it'll be another story.
We're considering you for a real spot. We're trying to establish a man in one of enemy area's chief seaports to observe the naval concentration there and to find out whether or not there's a submarine base in that vicinity. Now, you could do it if you went in with the right attitude.
Look, if you think I've got the ability, don't worry about my attitude. Which port is it?
El Porto.
El Porto! My old stamping grounds. I could draw that coast with my eyes closed.
Well, this job calls for you going in with your eyes open. Now, you know the locale all right. But that isn't enough to get by. Now, think it over and come back when you're ready to talk cover.
I'm ready now. El Porto, let me see. I've got it. A fishing boat skipper. I've raced around there enough to know the channels by heart.
Fishing has possibilities. And we have a lot of contacts with fishermen around there, you know, who could probably take care of you.
Then it's all set.
No, it's just something to consider now. And if it doesn't hurt your feelings, we'd like to bust you from skipper to an ordinary seaman. You know, every skipper is known to the shore patrol there, but if you were just a member of the crew, like the thousands of in every seaport, you might get by with it.
Get by with it. I talk the language like a native. I know those waters better than most natives. How can I miss?
Very easily. By going on like you've been going, by knowing all the answers before you even think of the questions. Now, we'll give you all the dope you require about this El Porto area, but just don't read it. Absorb it.
Okay, if you want to waste time. But I tell you, I know El Porto like a book.
Perhaps the enemy has added a couple of chapters since you've left.
Aye, aye, sir.
So you're all set on your story, eh?
Well, I'd like to try it out on you.
All right. Shoot. Let's see how closely it conforms to your own life. And don't forget, I'll be watching for errors as closely as an enemy police officer.
Here it is. My name is Albert Horn. Both my parents were born in enemy area, and I lived in Detroit for 5 years when I was born there in 1903. I was in Detroit until 1913 when my mother died, and I was sent back to live with my aunt and uncle in the capital of enemy area. I graduated from the gymnasium in 1920 and went to work in my uncle's bicycle shop. In 1924, I went back to Detroit and worked as an apprentice in the Ford plant. In 1926, I transferred to General Motors, where I worked as a machinist until 1931. From 1931, I was on relief until 1936, when I went back to my old job at General Motors. Just before my home country went into the war, I felt it was my duty to return there and serve in any way I could. Arriving there on the U.S. tourist passport, I volunteered with the engineers. And then, after a year and 3 months in the Army, I'm discharged with a bad back.
Ever had a bad back?
No, but I thought I could fake it.
Never say anything you can't prove. Why not make it sciatica? That's one ailment the best doctor in the world can't prove you haven't got.
Okay, sciatica. I convalesced for a short time in the country at a friend's house.
That will be the farmhouse you're taken to by the reception committee.
And then when I'm directed to find employment in an aircraft factory because of my technical experience, I come to the capital and make arrangements for an interview with the superintendent of the Falcon plant.
Sounds all right, Al. That story ought to stand up.
It's a little glib, perhaps, but it isn't bad. Now, you talk a good fisherman. Now you've got to learn to be a good fisherman. The next thing in the agenda is a couple of weeks with the commercial fishermen on the Grand Banks.
Won't I stink enough of fish on the other side without having to get a 2-week start?
Oh, it isn't a question of stinking like a fisherman. Oh, that's important, too. You've got to know the ropes. Literally, I mean.
But I'm a fisherman from way back. Why I landed the biggest